The sun bathed the forest in golden light, casting long shadows upon the ground. Birds chirped in rhythmic harmony, their voices blending into the ambient hum of nature. The Buddha sat cross-legged beneath a great tree, his presence emanating a serene stillness that calmed all nearby. Disciples gathered in a semicircle, their robes rustling quietly in the gentle breeze. The disciples listened intently, their breaths slowing as they absorbed the quiet power of his words. A mindful person sees the river of life clearly, understanding its flow and learning to navigate its currents, he continued. Life is suffering, the Buddha began, his voice steady and deep. But this suffering is not insurmountable. A young disciple raised his hand timidly. Master, why does suffering persist so universally? The Buddha's face softened into a faint smile. Suffering arises from ignorance and craving. We cling to illusions and resist the truth of impermanence. The disciple frowned in reflection, his gaze fixed upon the forest floor. But why do we crave? Master, is craving not natural in beings? The Buddha adjusted his posture and began again, his tone deliberate and measured. Craving stems from a thirst, a yearning for permanence, for lasting joy in an impermanent world. So too must we learn to pause, reflect, and gather our inner strength when faced with overwhelming challenges, the Buddha said. The disciples nodded, their hearts stirred by the profound simplicity of the teaching they had just received. Disciples leaned closer, captivated by the unfolding tale. The Buddha continued, yet, the sight of old age, sickness, and death tore the veil from my eyes. Be aware of the sensations in your body, the emotions in your heart, and the thoughts in your mind, he said. Do not judge or cling to these experiences, but observe them as you would watch clouds drift across the sky, the Buddha advised. The disciples nodded, their faces lit with understanding. They listened intently as the Buddha's words painted a vivid picture. Practice patience with yourself, for the journey to awareness is not a race but a lifelong path, the Buddha continued. His words seemed to envelop the disciples like a gentle breeze, bringing them a sense of peace and purpose. The Buddha then picked up a handful of soil and held it out for all to see. This soil is like the foundation of our consciousness, fertile and full of potential for growth, he said. It is an attachment to impermanence. The Buddha gestured toward the flowing stream nearby. This water moves freely, never bound to one place. Life flows similarly. When we cling, suffering follows. A senior disciple, Sariputta, spoke. Master, how can we free ourselves from craving? The Buddha answered without hesitation. Observe the mind with mindfulness. Witness desire as it arises, and let it fade, without grasping or aversion. When you eat, taste each bite fully, aware of the nourishment it provides your body, he continued. When you walk, feel the connection between your feet and the earth, grounding yourself in the present moment, he said. Another disciple, Ananda, raised his hand. Master, is it possible to live free of craving entirely? The Buddha chuckled softly. Freedom is a practice, not a static state. It requires vigilance and compassion. Ananda nodded thoughtfully. The Buddha extended his arm toward the stream. Let your journey be guided by the principles of awareness, compassion, and equanimity, he concluded. The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts filled with gratitude and determination to walk the path of conscious living. Is that correct, Master? The Buddha smiled approvingly. Indeed, the water accepts impermanence and moves without resistance. The disciples exchanged glances, their faces aglow with newfound insight. The Buddha's teachings permeated their consciousness. The Buddha stood gracefully, gesturing for his disciples to follow. Let us walk together. Each step reminds us of the present moment, a gateway to peace. As they walked, the Buddha spoke softly, his voice blending with the rustling leaves. Mindfulness grounds us in the present. liberating us from craving for the past or future. Feel the earth beneath your feet, he instructed. Its solidity is a reminder of life's grounding truth. The disciples obeyed, their steps synchronized, their minds attuned to the flow of the moment. In each breath, in each step, we cultivate freedom, the Buddha said. Freedom is not absence but openness to impermanence. Master, what does freedom feel like? A disciple asked. The Buddha stopped, turning to face the group. Freedom feels like the mind returning to its natural rhythm. Unburdened by fear or desire, he replied earnestly. A disciple seated nearby asked, Master, how can we help those who are blinded by their own anger and pain? The Buddha answered, be a light in their darkness, offering kindness and understanding even when they fail to see clearly. The light of compassion shines brighter when shared, touching the hearts of others and dissolving the barriers between them, he added. In mindfulness, both dissolve, revealing clarity. The group reached an open field, the horizon stretching wide and infinite. The Buddha raised his hand, pointing to the sky. What do you see? He asked. The sky, vast and infinite, replied a disciple. The Buddha's voice carried a gentle firmness. So is the mind. When freed from craving and attachment, the Buddha's robe fluttered in the breeze as he extended his teaching further. Impermanence liberates us from illusion. Accepting change is the pathway to wisdom. Master, how do we begin to accept impermanence? Asked a disciple. The Buddha's eyes glimmered with understanding. The disciples watched the bird, their hearts softening as they reflected on the simplicity and beauty of its life. Another disciple spoke. Master, how do we share compassion in a world filled with division and hostility? The Buddha replied, begin with the people nearest to you, your family, your community, and let the circle expand outward. The disciples exchanged glances, their minds aligning with the wisdom shared. In each impermanent moment lies an opportunity to awaken, the Buddha continued. Acceptance does not mean passivity, he clarified. It means embracing the flow without resistance or despair. The disciples nodded, their hearts opening to the profound teaching. The Buddha paused, gazing upon the horizon as the sun dipped lower. Let the sun remind you of impermanence, he said. Its descent promises return, teaching renewal. Master, how can we remember these teachings in daily life? Asked Sariputta. The Buddha smiled knowingly. Through mindfulness, observe thoughts and actions. Each moment can be a lesson. The disciples stood quietly, reflecting on the day's teachings. The Buddha turned to face them fully. Suffering begins with craving but ends with awareness and acceptance, he said. The forest was silent but for the whisper of leaves in the breeze. Let your practice be steadfast, the Buddha concluded. Let impermanence guide you and mindfulness sustain you. The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts filled with resolve and gratitude. The Buddha smiled warmly, his presence radiating peace. The Buddha continued, do not resist change, for resistance creates suffering, much like a dam blocking the natural course of a river. Instead, flow with change, adapting to its presence and finding strength in the journey it invites, he said. The golden light faded, yet the wisdom shared endured, illuminating the path ahead. Another day, another gathering under the sprawling branches of the Bodhi tree, its shade casting ripples of coolness on the earth. The Buddha sat with his disciples in quiet reflection, their breaths blending harmoniously with the morning breeze. The world felt tranquil, as though nature itself paused to listen. The Buddha opened his eyes, his gaze serene and penetrating. Today, I will share the path to mindfulness, he began. The disciples leaned forward, their attention sharp, ready to absorb the teachings offered by their master. Mindfulness is the anchor in a restless ocean, the Buddha continued, his voice steady. Without it, we drift aimlessly. A disciple raised his hand hesitantly. Master, What is the nature of mindfulness? The Buddha smiled, his face glowing with calm understanding. Mindfulness is awareness of the present moment, he said. It is a flame that illuminates thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment. Consider the story of Kisa Gotami, the Buddha offered, his tone imbued with both gravity and compassion. The disciples nodded in recognition of the familiar tale. Kisa Gotami came to me carrying her lifeless child, her heart drowning in grief, the Buddha recounted softly. She begged for medicine to restore her son, her hope fragile yet unyielding. The disciples listened intently, their breaths shallow, absorbed in the poignancy of the story. I told her to fetch a mustard seed from any house untouched by death, the Buddha explained. She set out immediately, clinging to this slender thread of possibility. But every door she knocked upon revealed the same truth, he continued. Suffering and loss had visited every household. Kisa Gotami returned to me, her face shadowed by understanding, the Buddha said. She wept not just for her son but for all suffering beings. The disciples remained silent, moved by the tale of transformative grief. The Buddha's voice gained a quiet strength. In that moment, Kisa Gotami awakened to the truth of impermanence, he said. Mindfulness grew within her heart. A disciple asked, Master, how does mindfulness grow in the face of such pain? The Buddha's expression softened, his voice carrying an almost musical cadence. Pain, when embraced mindfully, becomes a teacher, he said. It reveals the transient nature of joy and sorrow alike. The disciples exchanged thoughtful glances, the weight of the teaching settling into their hearts. The Buddha gestured toward the grove surrounding them. Look at the bamboo, he said. It bends in the wind, yielding to the force, yet remains unbroken. So too must the mind be, the Buddha continued. Mindfulness helps us yield without breaking, adapt without losing our essence. Another disciple raised his hand. Master, is mindfulness achievable for everyone? He asked earnestly. The Buddha nodded with quiet assurance. Mindfulness is innate, he said. It requires cultivation, like watering a seed already present within us. Start with the breath, the Buddha instructed. Feel its rhythm, its flow, its connection to life itself. The disciples closed their eyes momentarily, following the Buddha's guidance. The air around them seemed to hum with newfound stillness. Each inhale is a return to the self, the Buddha said. Each exhale is a letting go of unnecessary burdens. But Master, a disciple interjected, what if the mind wanders? The Buddha chuckled softly, a sound like the rustling of leaves in the wind. The wandering mind is natural, he said. Bring it back gently, like guiding a stray lamb to its flock. The disciples smiled faintly, reassured by the simplicity and warmth of the advice. Mindfulness is not perfection, the Buddha emphasized. It is a practice, an ever-unfolding journey of presence and awareness. A disciple named Rahula asked, Master, how does mindfulness affect our relationships with others? The Buddha's gaze rested upon Rahula, his son and devoted follower. Mindfulness transforms relationships, the Buddha replied. It allows us to see others clearly, free of projections and judgments. When we are mindful, he continued, compassion arises naturally, for we recognize the shared nature of suffering and joy. The disciples nodded, reflecting on their own connections with others. Mindfulness is a mirror, the Buddha said. It reveals not only the world but also the mind that perceives it. Master, can mindfulness change the world? Asked a young disciple, his voice tinged with curiosity and hope. The Buddha's expression became thoughtful. Mindfulness changes the individual, he said. When individuals change, the world cannot help but follow. The disciples absorbed the words, their minds alight with the possibilities of such transformation. The Buddha rose from his seated position, signaling the continuation of their journey. Let us walk mindfully, he said. Each step is a reminder of our connection to the earth and each other. The disciples followed, their footsteps synchronizing with the rhythm of the forest sounds. The Buddha's voice resonated among the trees. Each leaf, each stone, each gust of wind carries a lesson, he said. Mindfulness allows us to hear them. They came upon a flowing stream, its clear waters glittering in the sunlight. The Buddha gestured toward it. What does this stream teach us about mindfulness? He asked. The disciples observed the water. Its movement both gentle and persistent. It flows continuously, one disciple said. It adapts to obstacles, carving its path without resistance. The Buddha smiled approvingly. Exactly, he said. Mindfulness flows through life's challenges, finding harmony without force or struggle. The disciples knelt by the stream, dipping their hands into its cool waters, feeling its vitality. In mindfulness, we touch the essence of life itself, the Buddha said. The group continued their walk, the teachings of mindfulness weaving into their thoughts with each step. They reached a clearing where the sunlight poured onto the earth like liquid gold. The Buddha turned to face his disciples. Mindfulness is the path to freedom, he said. It liberates us from the chains of distraction and craving. Master, how can we sustain mindfulness in everyday life? Asked Rahula. The Buddha's smile returned, filled with gentle wisdom. Begin with small practices, he said. Observe your breath, your steps, your words. Each moment is an opportunity for mindfulness. The disciples absorbed the advice, their determination to practice mindfulness visibly deepening. The Buddha extended his hand toward the sky. Mindfulness turns the ordinary extraordinary, he said. It reveals beauty and truth in the simplest acts and moments. The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts swelling with gratitude for the teachings shared. The forest seemed to echo with their silent reverence. The Buddha's voice softened, yet carried the weight of conviction. Mindfulness is both the journey and the destination, he said. It is the present, untouched by past regret or future worry. The disciples stood, united by a shared purpose and a renewed sense of clarity. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the land, the group made their way back. The Buddha's words lingered in the air, like a melody that refused to fade. Their journey continued, each step an act of mindfulness, each breath a reminder of life's impermanence and beauty. Another day, another quiet evening under a canopy of stars. The Buddha sat surrounded by his disciples in silent contemplation. The air carried the faint aroma of blossoming jasmine, mingling with the whispers of the night's gentle breeze. The moon, full and radiant, cast a silvery glow upon the earth. The Buddha spoke, his voice resonant and calm. Compassion is the key that unlocks the door to interconnectedness, bridging our hearts with all living beings. The disciples leaned closer, their expressions attentive, seeking the wisdom their master would impart under the moon's light. Let me tell you the story of Angulimala, the Buddha began, his tone rich with both gravity and hope. Angulimala was a man feared for his ruthlessness, his tally of lives marked by fingers worn around his neck. The disciples exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the darkness of the tale about to unfold. When I encountered him, he sought to kill me, driven by his thirst for another life to complete his count. The Buddha paused, his gaze serene and unwavering. I stood before him and spoke. I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who must cease. The disciples listened, their breaths held as the story unraveled. Angulimala dropped his weapon and knelt, his body trembling. How can I cease, Master? He asked. The Buddha's tone softened, carrying an undertone of warmth. I told him, begin with your own life. Heal it through acts of kindness and compassion. Angulimala abandoned his path of destruction. That day, the Buddha continued. He became my disciple, embracing the transformative power of compassion. The disciples sat in silence, their faces reflecting the weight of the tale, the magnitude of its lesson. Compassion, the Buddha said, is not conditional. It does not weigh who deserves it. It flows freely, like the moonlight above us. A disciple named Mahakassapa asked, "Master, how can compassion transform those burdened by anger and hatred?" The Buddha's eyes glimmered with understanding. "Compassion softens the hardened heart," he said. "It offers light to those lost in darkness and warmth to those consumed by cold." The disciples nodded, their minds touched by the simplicity and depth of the teaching. The Buddha gestured toward the stars. "Look at these stars," he said. "Each shines individually, yet together they form constellations, illustrating unity in diversity." Compassion reveals that we are not isolated beings, he continued. We are threads in a vast fabric of existence. A disciple named Upali raised his hand. "Master, how do we cultivate compassion in ourselves?" he asked. The Buddha's gaze softened further, his voice carrying an almost musical cadence. "Begin with mindfulness," he said. "Observe the suffering of others without judgment, and let understanding stir compassion within your heart. Speak words that heal rather than harm." He added, "Act with kindness, even when faced with adversity or anger." The disciples exchanged thoughtful glances, reflecting on their interactions with others and the challenges of practicing compassion. The Buddha stood gracefully, signaling the group to rise. "Let us walk together," he said. "Each step reminds us of the interconnectedness we share with the earth and all beings." The disciples followed, their footsteps echoing softly in the stillness of the night. The Buddha's voice resonated among them. "Each blade of grass, each stone, each gust of wind carries the touch of interconnectedness," he said. Compassion reveals their beauty. They reached a small pond, its surface reflecting the moonlight like a silver mirror. The Buddha gestured toward it. "What does this pond teach us about compassion?" he asked. The disciples observed its tranquil waters, rippling gently under the caress of the breeze. "It reflects all without distinction," a disciple said. "It accepts what comes without resistance." The Buddha smiled approvingly. "Indeed," he said, "compassion reflects the suffering of others, accepting their pain without judgment or aversion." The disciples knelt by the pond, their reflections blending with the night's luminous glow. "Through compassion, we recognize our shared humanity," the Buddha said. The group continued their walk, the teachings of compassion weaving into their thoughts with each step. They reached a hill where the horizon stretched vast and infinite under the night sky. The Buddha turned to face his disciples. "Compassion is the light we carry into the darkness," he said. "It transforms fear into courage and despair into hope." "Master, how can we sustain compassion when faced with cruelty?" asked Mahakassapa. The Buddha's expression remained serene yet filled with conviction. "Compassion does not condone cruelty," he said. "It seeks to heal its source, understanding that cruelty arises from suffering. To sustain compassion," he continued, "remain steadfast in love and understanding, even when tested by anger or hatred." The disciples absorbed the advice, their determination to embody compassion visibly deepening. The Buddha extended his hand toward the stars above. "Compassion turns isolation into connection," he said. "It reveals the beauty and truth of our interdependent existence." The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts swelling with gratitude for the teachings shared. The Buddha's voice softened, yet carried the weight of conviction. "Compassion is both the journey and the destination," he said. "It is the thread that weaves humanity into a single tapestry." The disciples stood quietly, united by a shared purpose and a renewed sense of clarity, as the moon reached its zenith, casting its silvery light across the land. The group made their way back. The Buddha's words lingered in the air, like a melody that refused to fade. Their journey continued, each step an act of compassion, each breath a reminder of life's interconnectedness and beauty. Buddha's eyes glimmered, filled with boundless understanding. Compassion, he replied simply. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.